Everyone downstairs, please upstairs. Hey, everyone downstairs, we're starting. I guess we'll jump right into it. So our first presentation tonight is from Eric and Thomas from Ledger Wallet, and they're going to be giving a presentation on what's up next with hardware wallets.
I'm Thomas Frank, so I'm a co-founder of Ledger, and this is Eric, my co-founder and CEO. We're going to talk about a little bit about hardware wallets, a few examples about what we've been doing, and what we're up to with Ledger. So, a team of 17 based in Paris and San Francisco. So we're mostly French from this cybersecurity space. We raised a bit of money in France, so $3 million. And what we want to do is to provide some simple, safe, and affordable solution for Bitcoin security. So you all know that there's a big problem for Bitcoin. You know about that. When you own Bitcoin, what you actually own are private keys. And because of the decentralized nature of Bitcoin, the fact that transactions are reversible, there's a full responsibility that lies on the user. And you cannot manage these immutable data on regular computers or smartphones that are not designed for that. So there's some different ways to handle these private keys in real Bitcoin. There's this approach to delegate the security to a third party. So you just go to a kind of Bitcoin bank that manages the private keys for you. So Coinbase, Apple, Circle, these are kind of Bitcoin banks that have been gaining quite a lot of traction. And you don't have to bother about security in this approach. Not everybody wants to do that. There's some other solution, let's say software-based wallets, that are actually the private keys are stored on the smartphone, on the computer, and it's not like malware-proof. There's some ways to, of course, mitigate the risk. You can always have a clean computer. There's some platforms that are most trustworthy. If you go on the keychain for iOS, for example, this kind of thing. And you can also use multi-signature to minimize the single point of failure. But there's also another way that is like paper wallet. So you just print out your paper wallet, put it in a vault, and don't use it. But the problem is that as soon as you're going to use it, private keys are going to be exposed to an warp in some way. So one thing that will be needed is actually kind of air-gapped secure environment dedicated to the management of these private keys, where the key generation is made securely, the signature of the transaction are made within that environment, and you can actually validate this transaction with a certain time. And the specialized hardware device can actually do that. And that's why hardware wallets have been having quite a lot of traction. So today on the market, you can say that there's a couple of them. So Trezor has been on the market for about a year or something like that. Is us, Ledger, and also Case that has been launching like a multi-sig hardware wallet as well. So we all have different specificities, different pricing points, different addressable market, but today we are all dedicated on making Bitcoin safer. So maybe the best would be to make a little demo of how it works on the Ledger side.
Okay, so it's a little small, but you will be able to see. So what I have done is I have connected the Ledger wallet, which is a smart card on a USB form factor to the computer, to the USB port. And it works with any kind of computer running Chrome or Chromium, so PC, Mac, Linux. And so as you can see here, this is a wallet, and it's an HD wallet. So you can actually have a few different wallets with a large number of addresses. So basically what you have here is like a normal wallet, an interface where you can send, you can receive, you can see your transaction history. And where the big difference is compared to other software-based wallets is when you are going to send. So I'm going to show you how it works. So first I will just take an address from my wallet. And then I'm going to send, for instance, 1 Bitcoin. And this is a real critical operation. When you are going to sign a transaction, it means that you need a private key, you need to have it not encrypted, and in traditional software-based wallet, it will be in the memory of the computer. And this is where you are at risk. Here, all the signature is done inside the hardware wallet. But you need to make sure of what you are going to sign. Because if it works as an oracle, like signing everything without verifying, if you have a malware on the computer, it can just modify the destination address or the amount, and then it will sign something and you will lose your Bitcoin. This is why we use a secure, yes?
So are these real Bitcoins?
Yes. This is not testnet, it's a live net. And you need to make sure of the transaction of the destination address. And in this particular example, I have paired my smartphone to the hardware wallet, and I just have been pushed. So on the push that I receive, I can see exactly what is the transaction that I have done, and it asks me to confirm that I really want to send 1 Bitcoin to this address. And this is a secure pairing between the hardware wallet and this phone. It means that you need to have the phone to make the payments. That means that even if you take my hardware wallet and you take my PIN, if you do not have the phone or a physical security card, in case I don't have the phone with me, then you cannot make any transaction. And it is connected using WebSockets securely. And now if I'm going to confirm the transaction, it will go through, it will sign the transaction again inside the secure element, which means the private keys will never be revealed to the host. And so even if this computer is with keyloggers, with all the malwares that you can think of, there is no way that they will be able to steal the private keys or take the bitcoins. So this is an example of how we can use a hardware wallet. And once it's signed, it will give back to the computer the signed transaction, which is not critical information, and it will just send it to the Bitcoin network. So this is, let's say, the first kind of hardware wallet. It is very compact and it is very resilient. And of course, you can ask yourself, what happens if you lose it? So if you lose it, of course, you have what we call a BIP39 backup. It is 24 words where you can write on a piece of paper. And that you will put in a safe, in a bank, you know, because you need to still have some... no banks. No banks. And so if you lose it, you can always restore your seed and get access to your bitcoins. And you do not have to use a ledger wallet. It's a standard. And it also means that even if our company goes out of business, you will not lose your Bitcoin. It is because you never know what can happen. And sorry? I didn't hear.
Are you going to pass it around?
With your phone, maybe?
You can pass it and look how it is. So, it's okay. I feel safe. Where is it? Okay. So this is the first example of hardware wallet. And let's say that the limitation that it has is a full USB port. It cannot connect to a mobile wallet. Well, it can on some Androids, but for instance, it cannot on iOS. And the next generation of hardware wallets is to have the ubiquity of connection, which means that you can use with your laptop, with your mobile. So it's easier to use in all the circumstances. Also, the problem with hardware wallets, you can say it's hardware. It means that you need to buy something. It comes in a box. Okay, so you need to buy it. It's not very expensive. It's like $30, but still, it can be a pain point because you need to find it, you need to buy it, you need to receive it, you need to have some motivation, and it can be, let's say, a difficulty to scale. So the other approach is to use what we call the secure zone of the smartphones. The technical name is trusted execution environment, and I'm going to show that after. And finally, we can also see what we can do with the open architecture and API from the hardware wallets. So the next generation is to use just contactless hardware wallets. Right now, the Trezor and the Ledger Nano use the USB. You have the Case wallet, which is Wi-Fi, well, with the GSM, yes. So it doesn't need a computer to work. And also the next generation that we are going to release in September, which is the same thing that the Nano, but with an NFC card, so which will work on Android phones. The same thing that when you need to sign something, you just tap. If it's a multi-signature, you do not need a second factor, but if it's not multi-signatures, then you need also to have a second factor using a security card. So, trusted execution environment. This is the secure zone of the smartphones I was talking about. Now, in all the recent Samsung phones, you have this TV, which has been designed by Trustonic, and basically it's a virtual machine running in a secure environment. It is exactly like having a smart card or a secure element, but in a virtualized way. When you are running inside this secure zone, there is absolutely no way from the Android OS to communicate or to take control of this zone. So it is exactly like you will have a virtualized hardware wallet inside your phone. So the big advantage is that you get all the same securities and secure element, like a dedicated hardware wallet, but you can just download it. So it is much easier to use, and it looks like that. So there are pictures, they are not screenshots, because you cannot do screenshots, in fact, of a secure element, of a trusted execution environment, because all the layers of the Android operating system are completely disabled. So what is running, it's just our operating system, it's running on the C level, and all the UI is the trusted UI, which means that you cannot take screenshots. If you press on the buttons of the Android, it will do nothing. And it will be a secure zone where again we have a full management of the private key. We are going to release a beta version of the Trustlet. This is the name of this product, and it will work with Android and green address. So yeah, mycelium and green address, and we expect in 2 weeks once some of the certificates will be propagated by Samsung. No, on iPhone it is a closed. They do not have this kind of technology. It's a little bit different, but right now there is no possibility. It will be only Android phones.
Keychain, basically, you can use keychain, but you cannot choose to store some data in it, some private keys, some words to make the seed, but you cannot like sign the transaction within the keychain, the secure enclave of iPhone. That's a limitation on iOS.
And then, if you are interested, we can show you a demonstration on our phones of how it looks. And it works right now on the Galaxy Note 4 and all the Samsung S6. And the prediction is that next year, a lot of the Samsung, mostly all the high-end Samsung phones will have the Trustonic trusted execution environment embedded.
Something part of the Knox, Samsung Knox?
No, it is something different. It's the same ID. But it is not the same. It's not exactly the same system. Also, with all these hardware wallets, usually you have like API. You can do a lot of things, and you can do third-party integrations. For instance, with the Ledger Nano, you can also use the key, the hardware wallet, to host a key from a multi-signature wallet with GoldGuide and soon with Copay. Right now, if you want to do multi-signature, like for instance you are an enterprise and you want to do 5 or 10 to make a payment, the pain point is the management of the keys, because it's 5, you need to have them on your computers, and if you use the key, in fact, you can very easily distribute them, and you just need to connect and sign. And we have launched enterprise solutions where you can just buy a pack of 10 hardware wallets. So it's easy for enterprises to do multi-signature. Also, you can do identity, you can do login, third-party login, two-factor authentication just using this hardware wallets. So there is a lot of things that you can develop in the future. And of course, all compatibility with crypto assets because this is something which will be quite used in the future. So if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
What are the backup ways? How do you back up your
How do you back up it?
Repeat the question. Repeat the question.
Yeah.
For the last.
So how do you back up the keys? At initialization time, when you want to create your wallet, it will show you the seed, and it will give you 24 words, and then you will need to write them down on a piece of paper. And in case of loss of your wallet or your hardware wallet, then you will be able to restore access. And you can also restore access in Stadium or Multibit. You do not need a hardware wallet.
Or even Trezor.
Or Trezor, yes. Everything is usually compatible.
The code that runs in the trusted zone, how is that deployed on Android? Is it a standard APK or is it something else? Is it something that somebody could access, potentially disassemble, add some extra stuff and reassemble it?
So how does the application running in the trusted execution environment is deployed? So to deploy an app in this environment, so it's part of the APK, yes, APK, like of the Android package, or it can be downloaded after, like in-app purchase or whatever, if you want to add it later. And the way it works, you need, in fact, to have it's signed by certificates which has been accepted by Samsung. So to be able to deploy these applications, you need to have been accepted by Samsung and Trustonic. And it also use some kind of provisioning system using a tab, using a third-party company, which gives you, in fact, access and monitors the way you can install apps. So it's not trivial to be able to deploy apps in these environments, and for sure it cannot be spoofed because everything is signed and it's based on some kind of certificates.
You talked a little bit about enterprises using this for authentication. Could you talk a little bit more about the use cases for that? So I can see, for example, being able to identify yourself on a VPN, or what use cases did you imagine from being able to use it?
Well, we can show you, in fact.
Yeah, so you have the possibility to use like a Bitcoin address as an identification, and you sign a challenge, and you are identified by your private keys. So it's a way to identify yourself on a service. So this is Bitcoin Blue, just to show a demo of how it can work. So you can sign in with like a Bitcoin address. You log in with Ledger. It asks you to for this challenge, this address. You sign. Up, and it's logging you in. So you're logged in, and when you come here, like success, you're logged in on that service. So you can use like Bitcoin as authentication protocol as well.
So it's not identity in the way of the legal identity, but you can use, in fact, the hardware wallet either to log in, to identify yourself, or to use as a second factor authentication. So this is a possibility which you do through the APIs of the hardware wallet.
Any options for altcoins?
Altcoins?
Yeah.
Yeah. We have testnet, and also it will work with Litecoin, Dogecoin, or there is, as long as we have blockchain APIs to be able to get blockchain information, and then we can, it's possible to combine the app to work with Litecoin, Dogecoin, so it will be supported in September, I think.
Right, but I have to contact you guys. So obviously, I have to contact you guys. I haven't broken it all.
Yeah, if you want to add support of any altcoin, you just need to contact us. There is some requirements. It needs to be like to be BIP32, BIP44, BIP39. So there are some requirements, but and a blockchain explorer.
I would say that you have to
example, it's very hard to put the fees at the wallet in the bank, or how that works, how the page goes out.
It works only on the Bitcoin network. It means that you cannot really connect your credit card to this kind of hardware wallet. But with the NFC version of the hardware wallet, it is possible, in fact, to pay on the checkout on the payment terminal using exactly the same tokenization system that Apple Pay. The only limitation is that you need to find a partnership with a card issuer, which will give you, in fact, a connection to the banking world. So technically it's possible, but it is quite complex to obtain such partnership with banks or whatever, because I'm not so much ready or wanting to explore this kind of integration. But it's possible to do it. It will be, it's in theory possible to pay just with NFC and hardware wallets with bitcoins and your credit cards.
But today you need so much effort for the state of the usage.
Connection with the banks and stuff like that.
No, you will need to find a bank who will give you an API to generate virtual credit cards or tokens, so you could pay on normal terminals. So it's theoretically it's possible. We had such a license at the time, but once they understood we were doing Bitcoin, they just so maybe later.
Can we look at more of the trusted execution of the network?
Yeah, it's like a virtual machine. So the CPU just changed a bit, and it goes in a different world with a different memory, a different stack of execution, and it just runs an operating system. And it's not Android, it is our operating system, the Ledger OS, so it's very low level. All the code is in C. So for instance, if you want to show an image, well, everything we have to do everything from scratch. And this secure operating system cannot be accessed by the Android system, which means that if you have a malware or like an attack vector on your Android phone, it is not possible for this malware to go inside this secure virtual machine, which means that you have the same kind of certification and guarantees and a secure element to smart cards, which has been used by the banking system for decades, and it gives you a very strong protection, which means that it wouldn't be possible, in fact, to extract the secrets, like your seed, even if they physically got access to the smartphone. So it's a secure virtual machine.
There's somebody from Trustonic here, so maybe if you...
Yeah, this guy is from Trustonic, so you can explain to him instead so it works.
Is all of your code for that OS on your GitHub and open?
No, it's our firmware is not open source. We have specifications, but why it is not open source? It's because we have to sign NDAs with the chip manufacturer, and the APIs are not public. So it is not because we do not want to publish the source code, but one, we cannot because of the NDAs, because we do not have the right to expose the APIs of the secure elements. And second, it wouldn't be possible for anyone to compile, because to have access to the SDK of secure elements or anything, you need in fact to sign NDAs with the chip manufacturer. So if you cannot compile, you cannot build it yourself, then you cannot help, because you cannot go to the end.
So all the rest is open source. Everything that we can open source is
Can you use
open
the
source.
microphone?
Everything that can be open source is open source. So the Chrome app, the iPhone apps, the Android apps, all the companion apps are open source. And also, it's when you write code on a smart card, it's like a tamper-proof code that's provable. And we have a very detailed specification so that anybody can test against the specification and to see if the smart card acts the way it should act. So you can test the generation C, if you can export the private keys, if you can do all that, and you can verify that it really acts the way it was specified.
So where are my 500 bitcoins?
chip manufacturer that you're using and the chip that it's based on?
It is ST microelectronic. The chip on which this is based on is ST microelectronic.
So
ST, yeah.
I'm just wondering whether it itself has a specification and it's looked at in a manner that it wouldn't enable the manufacturer or somebody manufacturing a batch of chips to backdoor the chip itself.
Okay, we use, if you look carefully right now, it's like, just quickly, like, what if someone intercepted your hardware wallet or changed it or anything? So, in fact, we use attestation. If you look at the screen right now, when I put inside, it just does attestation. So it just asks the chip to sign a challenge, and because the private key is the ledger private key inside, then it can prove that it's a real one. So even if someone tries to change it, put it with something else, as they do not have our private keys, then the challenge will fail, and then you will see that it has been tampered. Okay, well, thank you.
So thanks, Thomas and Eric, for that presentation. Next up, we have Josh Cincinnati from BlockCypher, and he's going to be talking about the recent attack on Bitcoin blockchain, and entitled "Bitcoin Shrugs Off Massive Attack."
First off, always need applause. So first, let me just say thanks to the organizers for inviting me to speak. Thanks to the Ledger guys for the presentation as well. So I'm here to talk a little bit about the spam attack that happened in mid-July, and it's particularly topical because right now we're undergoing a little minor spam attack, it seems. If you check your mempools recently, it's around 10,000 transactions or so. So hopefully, to those of you not familiar with what happened, this will give you a little bit of background and so you can get more up to speed. So before diving into that, one small piece of corporate self-promotion, and then I'll get on to the actual educational stuff. As Paige mentioned, my name is Josh Cincinnati. I'm a Bitcoin obsessed developer advocate. I've done a lot of stuff in tech. I co-founded an Android app startup, did product management and business development with the Washington Post, and studied math and politics in college, so it's no wonder that I wrote about Bitcoin. For me, I've been sort of daydreaming about working at a Bitcoin startup, and the fact that I'm here doing this it's really cool to be part of Bitcoin's unfinished symphony. So I'm pretty stoked to be here and to be presenting in front of all y'all. And then on the BlockCypher side of things, it's also pretty appropriate that I'm doing this presentation here with the AWS logo right in front of me, because we are effectively an AWS for blockchain infrastructure. So if you're building a Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin app, we provide the infrastructure, you build whatever your idea is. We have probably the best SLA in the business. You can talk, I think there are a few of our customers are in the audience here. Ask anyone, we build dependable, great infrastructure, and you don't have to focus on it at all. So if anyone's interested in building any Bitcoin applications, come see me afterwards. And I promise that's the last bit of corporate shilling I will do. So,
what does AWS stand for?
Amazon Web Services.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Mid-July's massive attack. Unfortunately, Bitcoin did not sustain a performance by famed British trip-hop artist, Massive Attack. I wish they had, that would be a lot better. although we did encounter a few teardrops. And if you get that joke, come with me to see a Massive Attack concert. It'll be a lot of fun. No, in reality, what happened in mid-July was, in fact, the work of a sophisticated, relatively well-funded black hat who was trying to either raise fees or disrupt the Bitcoin network. And to kind of dispel some preconceptions, because some of the feedback that we received and heard before is that the spam attack in July was just a continuation of a stress test, in quotes, from a particular organization. I believe it was coinwallet.eu that may have claimed responsibility for those June stress tests. And truthfully, they haven't claimed responsibility for it. And more than that, even if you were in the Bitcoin infrastructure space, seeing what was going on, you could tell that what was happening in June was demonstrably different from what happened in early July. So June's attack was, or should I say stress test, was consistent. There were small transactions, relatively small volume, and the transactions themselves were really very similar. July's spam attack was much more sophisticated. There was a great deal of variability in the transactions that were actually propagated through the network, and the sheer magnitude was much, much greater. So this is the only TPS report I care about, which is transactions per second in the Bitcoin network. This right here is the blip that was part of the June stress test. And then a little bit further back here, there was also June 22nd, I believe, it was a tiny blip. July 6th, not a few days after the fun BIP66 soft fork, was this massive TPS spike, got up to 200 TPS at one point, actually even higher than that, supposedly. And that was what differentiates this spam attack, which really was an attack, compared to the stress test in June. So how many of you are familiar with sort of the limitations of Bitcoin's transactions per second? Show of hands. Okay, that's enough that I can still sort of explain this, I think. So to those of you who are unfamiliar, the real transactions per second limit comes from the fact that there's a limitation on block size and block discovery time. So on average, a block is discovered every 10 minutes or so. And that's sort of it's a random process, it's a Poisson process, but it's effectively every 10 minutes a new block is discovered, and each block can only have a megabyte in it. And until recently, many miners had defaulted to only 750 kilobytes. So these are all averages. The average transaction size is about 250 bytes. It can vary, but ultimately, if you just do the math on 1 million divided by 250, you get 4,000 transactions being discovered per block. And then that 4,000 transactions divided by 600 seconds is relatively 6.6 transactions per second, which is pretty much the hard limit. In fact, it might even be a little bit lower based off real network conditions. So that's where when you hear people talking about like the 4 to 7 TPS limit on Bitcoin, that's where it's derived from. It's how many blocks you're actually discovering on average in aggregate. So what winds up happening when you get higher than that number of TPS is the mempool, and it really should be called the many mempools because everyone has their own version of the mempool, balloons. It goes up. And you can think of the mempool as kind of like a staging area or a mezzanine for transactions. So you can effectively think of it as a place where people store all the transactions that haven't been put into blocks, nodes, and miners, both storing them there. And when TPS goes up, the mempool just goes nuts and goes up significantly. This is at the very beginning of the attack. This is the number of transactions in mempool, and you can see around, I think, 8 a.m. UTC, boom, the number of transactions in mempool just jumps up. And these graphs, by the way, are all provided by stattoshi.info, so if anyone wants to play with them yourselves, it's a fantastic site. This is bad, right? Because you have all of these transactions. Some of them are sort of malevolent, and some of them aren't. And you have to figure out, like, well, as a miner, you don't care which ones are spam or not. You care about the ones that have the highest fees, right? And so what the attacker did is, and if you get this idiom, they dropped the kids off at the mempool. So they literally were just grabbing up the mempool. And a lot of mempools couldn't take it, like poor Martin over here. So you wound up in a situation where many nodes operating in low memory environments were crashing. Mempools were becoming sort of disparate, and because of the lack of a concrete mempool policy, it created a lot of chaos, especially for people that were just just at the beginning of the spam attack, trying to send transactions. They had no idea that there's going to be some massive amount of spam plugging the system, and effectively, many of them didn't have transaction confirmations. That is to say, none of their transactions got included in blocks for many days, or in some cases, they were dropped entirely. So this is sort of what happened. You can imagine like each of these cars is a transaction, and because the spammer decided to just flood the network with all these transactions, it created a kind of transaction traffic jam. So another way to look at it is previously, before the spam attack, blocks were around half full or so. And that's on average. Like you'd see some full blocks, but generally speaking, most blocks were only up to 400 or 500 kilobytes. And so you could have as much, you could spend, there's a minimum fee, but generally speaking, most transactions would be included and you'd be fine. During the spam attack, it became like real estate around here, which is to say crazy expensive. So the minimum transaction fee went up 25 times, the average fee went up about 3 times. Once people adapted, it was fine, right? Like we all understood that, well, the average transaction fee was going up, and in order to get into the block, you had to be part of the 4,000 or so transactions above the 100,000 or so that may or may not be in the mempool that would, be accepted. The silver lining is that Bitcoin is robust and survived, and actually, relatively speaking, survived the plumb. So under 200 transactions, or despite the fact that we reached 200 transactions per second, the network continued to operate, and after people adapted with fees, we all turned out to be okay. So that's great. So there's a certain amount of like built-in protection that the network has, and credit where credit is due to the Bitcoin core developers for creating such a robust protocol. But there's still some problems. So this particular attack was extremely cheap, like way too cheap. Like not even, it's just really someone who's disgruntled and instead of going to Vegas wants to spend $5 grand a day to screw with the Bitcoin network, they could do so. And that's effectively what happened. If you actually looked at like the average of block size being about, blocks being about half full, the other 500 kilobytes needed to be filled with these spam transactions, and so it cost the attacker about 16 Bitcoin or $5,000 a day. So that's bad news. The good news is that, as I said before, there's a built-in protection, and effectively, as the attacker keeps attacking, they make it more expensive for themselves. They automatically rise the fees on all transactions, and then they themselves have to pay more in order to keep the attack going. So that's sort of good. But the problem from that is that it creates a new normal and higher fees. So y'all might not mind if you have to pay 15 cents for a Bitcoin fee or 5 cents for a Bitcoin fee, but if you're talking about the repeated use case of Bitcoin in the developing world, Bitcoin where people don't have access to banking infrastructure, that cuts into the margins in a huge, huge way, into their margins. And people where that fee matters the most is not with us, but with other folks that we desperately want to use Bitcoin because those are the ones that can benefit most from it. So that's sort of a problem too. And problem number 3, which I alluded to, large mempools are horrible. They're absolutely horrible. The big problem with them is that there's no consistent mempool policy or rules, and it creates uncertainty and disarray when people are wondering whether their transactions are ever going to be confirmed. And there are ways to mitigate this, but ultimately, it's really bad news if you send a transaction right before the spam attack started. Effectively, you have Bitcoins that can't be spent without basically attempting to double spend them or respend and double spend yourself. So that's bad. But the golden lining is that these are all solvable. Like we can figure this out. Oops, sorry. We can all solve these. So there's not going to be like some angel coming down from far above to fix this for everybody. Like this is really up to us to fix as a community. You know, Satoshi isn't around anymore. So we have to figure out how to do it ourselves. But it's all possible. You know, I think that there's in the Bitcoin community there is a sense of this sort of inertia in terms of we want to keep things as they are because they work, but we're a little worried about actually building new things and iterating, and I think that's part of the nature of a consensus-driven protocol. But there's a lot that we can do to fix these, and already even in Bitcoin Core 0.11, there's the min relay fee that was added, and there are also you can create like customized limits for the amount of free transactions that you'll accept. So there are certain mitigation tools, and I know that the core developers are hard at work at figuring out other methods. But I know that these things are solvable. And to maybe harp on another point that might be a little sensitive, it is interesting to note that this attack would be significantly more expensive if the block size was a little bigger. I'm not going to necessarily harp on that point, but it's just something to consider. But yeah, so for more details about sort of the spam attack and our perspective as a Bitcoin infrastructure company, feel free to check out the BlockCypher blog, which I really want to rename to BlockCypher, and maybe that'll happen one day. Or next week, I'm going to be presenting again, but more focused on some of the things that BlockCypher had to overcome from a technical perspective. So if you love technical postmortems, swing by next week for the SF Bitcoin Dev Meetup. But yeah, that's all. Thank you all very much. If there are any questions, by all means, over to you. Yeah.
Where would you put the block size debate? I mean, if you were in control, where would you put it?
Oh yeah. So he was asking if I was in control, where would I put sort of the block size or the block size debate? I actually. So first off, I'm an awful person to give control to, so I wouldn't give me any control. This is why I believe in decentralized things. But ultimately, I think that there's, and this is me speaking personally, not for the company, just my personal view. I think it's fair to say that like Moore's law is continuing to grow and iterate, and we're figuring out as we blaze past storage problems and CPU issues that we thought we never solved. It seems to continue unabated, and ultimately, like Bitcoin originally didn't have any block size limit in the beginning. It was merely put in there as a hack to prevent spam attacks, which it did, but also created this opportunity for a fee-based spam attack to appear. So I'm a big believer in, I think Gavin's proposal for doubling makes a lot of sense. That said, that's personal opinion, and I understand that could lead to some contentious debate. So yeah, but a good question. Yeah.
I'll save you from answering any further block size questions. A different one. What do you think the underlying motivations are for? What's your opinion on what the underlying motivations for somebody doing this?
Sure.
Theories out there.
Yeah. So I've heard a couple of theories. I'm not sure. I guess there's a theory that it was part of some system to increase mining revenue, which certainly did increase mining revenue for some folks. I think it may have been a call to action to get folks to realize that they weren't really adapting to potential future circumstances. Because in some sense, we wound up hardening our infrastructure as a result of the spam attack. And it was stuff that we probably wouldn't have done otherwise, and it actually, to the credit of someone on Reddit, like they said, well, it's stress tests like this that are necessary because they help people evolve their infrastructure in ways that they wouldn't have been tested with in production. Generally, I don't like testing stuff like this in production, but this is a decentralized network, and you can't really control that. So in some sense, we had a fee estimation feature that no one had heard about, and we ended up highlighting it. We started using it in our own microtransaction API. So there's I think there's reason to believe that maybe it wasn't entirely malevolent. That said, fair warning would have been nice, and I think that that in the future, whoever is doing this stuff, if they could go ahead and announce it, that'd be wonderful. Yeah, sorry, I saw a question over there. Oh no, from you. Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
Macaulay, like when you're talking about Spam Nation.
Oh, who's that?
Spam Nation, are you familiar with Spam Nation?
No.
Okay, well then, I guess I have no question.
Oh, okay. No worries. Yeah.
So I wanted to, you mentioned in this talk, or I guess you got the title on the slide, and I saw in your blog post as well. You say like big mempools are bad inherently.
Sure.
Yeah, it's absolutely true that like some of the wallets that either haven't been around for very long or haven't really been putting in serious efforts to make sure that they're robust against, things that people have been talking about are going to happen in Bitcoin for a long time, were affected in the early, were affected by this because they had to like add a de-estimation window.
Sure.
But I'm not sure why you're claiming that like bad mempools are inherent, or big mempools are inherently bad, right? So we can limit mempool size pretty easily, like there's been patches floating around to limit mempool size forever. But mempools will not be zero consistently. That's not something that anyone expected to be around for very long.
No, that's right. Although I guess I should clarify it and said that large mempools relative to block size is bad. I mean, just generally.
Well, I mean, my question is like, are you referring to like it's bad because it causes Bitcoin to use more memory, or what is it about it that's necessarily bad?
Okay, yeah. So I think part of what I was getting at is that when you have, and to your point, like some of this stuff ended up getting tested and people had to adjust as a result of it. But there are many implementations and people who are operating Bitcoin nodes in very low memory environments that wound up crashing, and then their mempools were cleared, right? And then they started back up, and effectively you had not necessarily consistent gaps in the network, but there became a certain degree of inconsistency on what people would see within a mempool. There wasn't like a uniform.
But what is the advantage in having like a unified mempool, right? That doesn't necessarily buy you anything aside from like people can see what is in their mempool.
I agree with that.
Almost all wallets will rebroadcast transactions that haven't confirmed, right? So like if mempools crash and they lose your transaction, you'll rebroadcast it out like 10 minutes later.
Sure, but if if you rebroadcast a transaction and other places have already seen it, then you're kind of in a sense, what you wind up doing is stressing out individual parts of the network, and I think that part of the rationale of why that is bad is that you wind up having this inconsistent queue over the long haul. Like if you had a mempool that was 200,000 transactions and a 1 megabyte block, and generally speaking, like what we really want more than anything else is those transactions to exist in the blockchain because they're hashed and secured, and you have the blockchain behind all of them, right? Like that's the ultimate goal. And if you have so many different implementations, or rather, if you have a wide variety of different implementations that have different mempool rules, and some of them might just start cutting off transactions or creating weird sort of relays.
Like throwing away spam. Like if there is just someone throwing a bunch of spam out there, or if there's people who are creating transactions that just will never confirm, what's wrong with throwing this away, right? They're never going to confirm anyway. They're never going to end up in a block. If they disappear at mempool, so what?
Well, I don't know. So that's a question I think about, like assigning a particular value to some transactions over the other, and I don't know that I'm qualified or any other individual mempool or miner is qualified to make that.
Well, it's about the fee per kilobyte, right? Like it's whether miners are getting
Sure.
affected, it's just the fee per kilobyte.
Yeah, but we can take this offline at some point. But I do appreciate like that there are reasons to have a dynamic fee market, and I want miners to be incentivized to do that. But yeah, we can talk about it later if you want. Thanks. Yeah.
In real time, what's the easiest, most clear way to tell that one of these attacks is going on? so that you know how to, something might be going on with Bitcoin.
So partially.
Like a website or a new
Yeah. So there are a lot of websites that are basically just running nodes, and you can see specific like part.
Okay, if you're not a big genius with all these fancy graphs and numbers, what's the simplest way to just know, in the simplest way, something that's really idiot-proof?
So actually, I don't really have an answer to that question.
That's okay.
You know,
It's okay.
Because there isn't like I don't think there's a clear-cut way like spam attack underway. Your transactions need to have hierarchy. Part of it is that a lot of wallets, and our own API has a fee estimation feature. So I'm going back to my promise not to show for my company, but there are lots of wallets, and even Bitcoin Core has its own fee estimation feature. And looking at like recent history, it can show you what your fee should be in order to make it into the next block. But that doesn't really count for what's happening in real time. And I don't know if anyone has a better answer for a place where you can.
I have one.
So you see the thing.
I have a better answer. We just don't know. We're just gonna go with it. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
I like to go with the flow.
We're gonna go with it.
Back there.
Well, it seems like the best way to deal with it is the application to deal with it. I mean, a lecture in mycelium, in my experience, had no problem coming up with fees. All my transactions went through without me adjusting it. So it seems like the application should be counting it, and the client shouldn't have any clue about what's going on.
That's true, although, you got to be able to communicate, I think, to users that are just starting with Bitcoin that like, oh, I thought the fees were only going to be this much, and you see this massive jump in fees, So that's a question, I think, for how you approach like the fee market thing from a user perspective, and I'm not sure, because I agree with you, like I think it should be handled by the application, but then figuring out how to communicate that to a user in a way where they aren't like supremely surprised by it would also be sort of useful, I think, to think about in the future, What's that?
Tell them it's 2%, they'll be delighted when it's wrong.
That's true.
I had the best one. It's physical, like. You know what I'm saying?
Like the shrug analogy.
Let's go.
That's true. Any other questions? Last question. Oh yeah.
Well, you made a really good point that early adopters aren't going to know why a fee would be higher, and they might not even know that their transaction didn't go through, and they got no banker to call and say, hey, I made a payment, how come my product didn't show up, or how come I didn't get the credit on my, so how does that get solved?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think that as a result of the spam attack, a lot of people have wound up adjusting their software and have started like telling people that, hey, these are estimates, right? And these are our fee estimates are adaptive and they're based off of network conditions as they exist. Because ultimately, when you think about it, like you look at the mempool and all it's going to get in is whatever is the top megabyte of transactions, right? And you need to figure out a way. I don't know what the easiest way is to communicate that to users that have not spent years like focusing on Bitcoin, and that's a big usability challenge. And so I actually, all you wallet guys out there, if you can figure out a solution to that. But I mean, I think that there are a lot of solutions. So the questions are like making it still competitive for miners, and also having opportunities for the spam attack to be less effective and keep fees more consistent would also be welcome. So, awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, wait. So a couple of quick announcements, and then we'll do lightning talk. So if you want to sign up for a lightning talk, there's a pen and paper right over here, or else just get in line with everyone else at the end. First of all, I guess thanks to AWS for hosting us, and thanks for everyone for filling out the long form. But the benefit
benefit of that is that if you ever come here again, you don't have to fill out the form again. So if we have an event here, we're all set. And you guys can use the space. It's kind of a co-working space, so it's kind of free to come to and use. And they might, market AWS to you, but it's a good space. It's definitely recommend it. And I guess I guess we're going to be doing a couple of transitions. First of all, Ryan Taylor, who has been live streaming for us for the past over probably a year now, he's going to be retiring from this meetup / going to Europe, so he can't live stream us anymore. So thanks to Ryan for live streaming us for this whole year, and likewise, we're looking, I guess, for a solution to sort of replace that. We don't have necessarily another person with a live stream encoder. The encoder is kind of the tricky part, and that's what really helps out. So we're going to be trying to figure out a solution for that. But so I guess stand by, or if you have any ideas, we're open for that. And then secondly, everyone may have been aware that Thomas Hunt has kind of joined the organization team, so that's really cool. But also Travis, if you want to stand up, he's also joining the organization team. Yeah, and I guess that's the second announcement is that next month will be my last month helping to co-organize. I've been doing
people to replace me. 2 guys.
So last month will be I'll still be around, but it's just kind of I want to do other stuff. So this kind of takes some dedication. So doing other things will need to replace my time doing this. So if you want to come hang out at the next end of the month meetup, we're going to be holding that at Internet Archive again. So I know Internet Archive is kind of tricky to get to for some people, so maybe for next month, which is the end of August, I believe that's August 25th, think about ride sharing or public transit out there. And thanks always to Coinbase for the sponsorship, the beer and the pizza. And I think next month we're either going to be doing for the social meetup El Rio or at Purse at 20 Mission, but we need to confirm that, so just stand by. And I guess that's it. So let's do the lightning talks. We can celebrate the last meetup I'm doing. All right, so everyone that signed up, please come up front. Or if you didn't sign up and want to make a 1-minute long talk, then we're doing that right now. So. Speaking of live streaming, Ryan Taylor.
How about that?
Hello. So Paige introduced me. I'm Ryan Taylor. I've been live streaming here for the last year. And first I wanted to thank Isabella and Paige for being amazing organizers and helping me do all this live streaming. They really gave me something to experiment with. Beyond that, I'm going to keep live streaming. I'm going to be traveling around the world, live streaming Bitcoin meetups, live streaming all sorts of divergent technology and disruptive technology events. So if you're interested in weird, abstract technology, new shit that's happening all over the place, MFEO.tv is where I'll be publishing a lot of it. If you click on the videos button right there, that is a feed to my YouTube channel, which is Adjyleak, ADJYLEAK. If you want to follow along with mesh networking, with cryptocurrencies, with all sorts of distributed and peer-to-peer technologies and what's happening around the world, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Keep up, and hopefully I'll be back soon. So thank you, everyone.
Excuse me, can I stand
Wait,
up?
no, you chill out.
Can I
man.
stand
Chill
up and
out.
say something?
No, just chill out.
Like everybody, like to.
Hey, so I run the Bitcoin Relay Network. It's just a bunch of fast nodes around the globe. It's used by most of the major mining pools and large miners to relay their blocks quickly around the globe in a few hundred milliseconds, which is plus or minus the speed of light around the globe. I'm looking for contributors. If you feel like writing software that will help the effective Bitcoin hash rate or resistance to attack by 1 or 2%, just by helping out. I'd love some help. It's bitcoinrelaynetwork.org, and you can find the GitHub up there, and there's some issues filed that should be reasonably tackleable by competent software engineers.
Okay, I got 3 things really quick. First, if you've ever heard of Coin Congress, it's going on August 12th, like 2 weeks. If you want to go, but can't afford it, it's a few $100s. They need volunteers. Come to me after, I'll get you set up. You can get a free ticket. You only have to volunteer for a few hours. Secondly, Bernie Sanders, he's awesome. You may not like him now, but you will come to like him. Thus, his first campaign event is tomorrow at 7 o'clock at Slate Bar in the Mission, right on 16th Street. Recommend you come.
I got flyers.
Oh yeah, we also have flyers. And I forgot the third thing. Thank you.
I just going to quickly take mention of the product that I'm involved in working on. It's called Multi-Chain. It's a fork of Bitcoin Core. It's open source, fully backwards compatible with Bitcoin API. I want to let you or your customers or companies which you're working with is create a private blockchain very similar to Bitcoin. 2 key advantages are permissions, so you can decide who gets to join the network, what they can do in the network. Can they send or receive assets? Can they issue assets? Can they even mine? And administrative permissions are based on consensus as well. And the second thing is native assets. So with Bitcoin, you can only send 1 token Bitcoin, but here in the private blockchain, we're taking Coin's technology and made it completely native. So you can issue dollars, pounds, euros, whatever you want, and send around these. So if you are interested in this, come speak to me. Thanks.
Hey everyone. My name is Nari. You guys have seen me at some of the freaking meetups. Normally I'm talking about my gaming stuff, but this is Simity, a project that we just recently launched with some comedians here in SF. I think that you have to give the people with the microphones information about Bitcoin because they're the ones with the microphones. So comedians here in San Francisco, they post their YouTube content here. You can go there, look at a few jokes, and if you like their content, tip them in Bitcoin. And I promise you, if we start doing something like this, the people with the microphones will start talking a hell of a lot more about Bitcoin. Thanks.
Anyone else? We have like 5 more 1-minute slots.
I'm Nima with CoinJabber. If you're looking for any services that accept cryptocurrency or have anything to do with the cryptocurrency community, in particular Bitcoin, you can go to coinjabber.com. You can also list your website or service and advertise it. You can get featured listings. And I actually have some sticker cells here, so thank you.
Hello. My voice is cracking a bit because I've been shouting a lot. I spent last week at Ephemeral, where I think everyone should go. This is where I first learned about Bitcoin. Well, I first learned about Bitcoin from a Slashdot post, but I didn't pay any attention to it until Ephemeral in 2011 when Brian McQueen came out and spoke about Bitcoin and got us all excited, and that was where I first saw people using Bitcoin in the real world. Peer-to-peer, completely spontaneous anarchy, which is what Ephemeral is. It's been described as Burning Man on the water or Drowning Man. But we're lucky enough that nobody has ever died, and this year was no different. A lot of people had fun. I banged up my knee, but we had a wonderful time. I think everyone should go. This is a spontaneous city that we build on the water of the Sacramento River Delta every year. And we live on it for about a week, sometimes longer. There are still people out there now who didn't tear up the islands. But if you go to the Facebook site, you'll see the drone footage of how big this thing is getting. This time I was on a ship, 1936 icebreaker tugboat that we spent 3 weeks getting ready to sail, and the biggest ship I've ever sailed on. But I had a great time. I talked about Bitcoin. I was pushing Bitcoin all the time. I met Brock Pierce, who was there, and everything went wonderfully. And I think since it shows that people were using Bitcoin, I paid for for the last 3 years, I paid my way out there with Bitcoin because this is where I first found out about Bitcoin. So if you're interested in anarchistic societies, intentional communities that operate safely and freely and peacefully, come check it out every year.
Okay, I think that's it. So we actually only have until 9 p.m., so we have like 20 more minutes, so you better go drink the rest of that beer. And then we're gonna go hang out at Tempest, which is on Natoma. I probably should have remembered the exact address, but
Just look it up on
look it up on Meetup or on Google. It's on Natoma Street, which is like probably. Yeah, Nima. It's one block past Mission Street. So we'll be going there as a crowd anyway. So all right, thanks everyone. Go drink the rest of that.